When I heard the title of this exhibition, I thought upper left, that must be something about where we live out here, as far as we could possibly be from the cultural center of the universe as it exists in the United States, or I should say such that it is in the United States.
My name is Louis Anderson. I graduated from Cranbrook in '63 and I majored in painting. I have been painting steadily and developing my approach to art and what art can do, and I've been exploring the medium of watercolor and what happens. My work, as I've noticed, has become gradually from rather representational to more and more abstract, and it's sort of a natural evolution, I think. I'm exploring this whole situation, and I've discovered Japanese inks, and they are just fantastic. You have to do a lot of thinking, and it's really quite exciting because these are very subtle. They have a just fantastically light touch to them. Usually my colors are right out of the tube and squeezing them on and everything, and no, not with this. This is, you have to do a lot of preparing, and as you're grinding the color, each one, it gives you time to kind of meditate on where you want this stroke or several strokes to go. Well, the one thing I learned from Cranbrook, and it was the most important lesson of my life in a way, was that I wanted to be an artist. I didn't want to teach, though I have taught several places, and I've given classes and things like that, but I wanted to be an artist and just paint and discover this thing that I was involved in, and I still am, and I still haven't discovered it at all. And no single painting, I mean, I don't want to let this for all these young artists, is don't be discouraged, because not a single painting that I have done am I totally, completely satisfied with. There's always one little thing that I wish I'd done different. And I think one of these days, if I do it, then I'll have to quit, because there would be nothing left. And there always has to be that something that you should have done, and you can carry it on to the next painting. And that's the point of discovery of your work and everything. And without that, I think you cannot be a real artist. If you're totally satisfied with every single thing you do, then there's something wrong.
My name is Erica Bass, and I graduated in '92 from the painting department. My work has moved on from object-based painting subject and opened up and moved into the mixed technique, a painting technique employed by early Flemish masters, where I'm layering white egg tempera with colored oil glazes in successive layers. A lot of translucent colors. And the sense of veils and the sense of depth of space that I'm not able to get just with straight oils. Well, at Cranbrook, I was doing all kinds of things besides painting. I was carving wood, I was working in metal, I was working in plaster cast making. When I did paint, I was mixing egg yolk into my oil paint because I wanted to build up surface. That was really important to me there. It was building up surface. Now what I'm doing now has the illusion of surface, but there's no surface. It's very flat painting. After I left Cranbrook, I'd made my living teaching and painting. So I was selling paintings on occasion and teaching around the city in different capacities. I was teaching adults in continued adult art education, and I was teaching actually in the school systems with little kids, doing different kinds of art projects to enrich their learning. So what I love the most, honestly, is always teaching techniques, painting techniques, and teaching people how to see. That's what I found it's really mostly about for me, is teaching people to understand and see color, see form, and be able to interpret it into different values, and creating that sense of light, creating that dynamic of color relationships. That's really exciting. I would say get out of your studios. You're supposed to be painting and working. Go walk around, make sure you see what everybody's doing, because I still think and consider a lot of what I saw at Cranbrook. The gift of that school for me was seeing the diversity of the work, seeing the different mediums being developed, all the different ideas. People have amazing ideas, and to have a cluster of that many artists working so closely together is what's so amazing about Cranbrook.
Hi, my name is Chris Fleckner. I graduated in 1996 from the metalsmithing department at Cranbrook. My work while I was at Cranbrook was primarily focused around the bicycle. I decided I wanted to make a go at making custom bicycles. At the same time, my other work at Cranbrook was furniture design and fabrication. I took the icon, the aesthetic, the feeling, and the visual of the bicycle and melded it with furniture. One of the pieces I created was a lounge chair that looked like a black Phantom Schwinn Cruiser, and just that real laid-back feeling. What the body of work is now that I'm working on is Japanese-themed contemporary jewelry pieces. I'm using Japanese motifs, Japanese metalworking techniques. The body of work that I'm showing is, I'd say, maybe half a dozen pieces old. I primarily do computer work for my 9-to-5 job and freelance jobs, which are more geared towards industrial design products. Staring at a computer all day, I find it absolutely necessary to have an outlet for my physical energy. So what I like to do is get off work and come to my studio and beat metal into submission. The most memorable experience that immediately pops to mind from my final year at Cranbrook would be being given the opportunity to have my review in the Saarinen house. They actually made room to the side of the dining room, and I was actually able to install my furniture pieces there and have them in this amazing setting, sit down with my reviewers on these pieces and basically just get to critique them. Cranbrook is not the end of the learning process, it's just a stepping stone. You need to focus and make the most of it. It's a wonderful environment, it's a great opportunity to play. You'll never get this much time to work in your studio again, and you should take advantage of it.
Me llamo Lane Goldsmith. Je m'appelle Lane Goldsmith. My name's Lane Goldsmith, and I graduated in 1979 from the Fibers program. When I went back to graduate school at Cranbrook, what I was really interested in doing was investigating my own creative process. I wanted to see what it was about in terms of getting in touch with that which drove me to make in the first place. Because I already had a graduate degree and I had been exhibiting my work and I had been teaching, and I was thinking that if I was going to spend a lifetime as an artist and really be engaged on that level, what I could learn most of all from 2 years in a place like Cranbrook was what in fact was it about to be a maker, and where did it all come from? What was it about, and where did it come from? The piece that is hanging on the wall in the museum at Cranbrook is one of a series of pieces inspired by the Tower of Babel. It's entitled Babel 3, and it is a drawing that is made by taking the cut out headlines of the Wall Street Journal and placing them without concern about what they say, which is then coated with a variety of materials, and essentially came up with an eccentric three-dimensional drawing surface. One of the things I'm doing right now is I have been working with a group of weavers in Nepal and have been designing carpets, having carpets woven in Kathmandu. And it's a project that I've incorporated into a special class at the university. I hate it when old people try and give me advice. Man, it's like, I don't want to tell anybody anything. You know, no. Well, okay. Nah.
My name is Keiko Hara, and I graduated 1976 in printmaking department. When I arrived in Cranbrook, the first time I felt I was in heaven, you know. I thought 24 hours I can really do and work with my art. But then pretty soon, the heaven became a hell. But I think, you know, the end of, before graduating, I was completely involved in my work. In Cranbrook, I started kind of explore my own identity as an artist. The works really started kind of from two-dimensional form to three-dimensional form, really evolved and developed more like an installation piece. I work in various media, but also I do fairly large-scaled the installation work. I have been working as an artist and teaching at the private liberal art school at Whitman College for over 19 years. When I started teaching, I am more and more a kind of really became a part of my art, because my art dealing with kind of my personal growth. Also, I am very interested in the kind of growth in a human. So actually kind of the teaching is really inspiring. And for me, teaching is a part of my creative work as well. Don't lose the fire. Keep burning your fire.
Well, my name is Marvin Herard, majoring in painting and sculpture, and my graduating year was 1960. Well, I remember that the last year was, it seemed that I was oftentimes short of sleep. It seems like we spent a major time in the studios from sunrise to sunset. And I remember that during the graduating ceremony, I had a hard time staying awake because I was just exhausted. The thing that caught my attention was the interest in bronze casting. Even though I came to Cranbrook thinking that painting was going to be my major interest. At that time, Cranbrook did not have a foundry. We do all of the preliminary work and take it to a industrial foundry to do casting. When I left Cranbrook, I spent a year in Italy on a Fulbright working in a foundry in Florence that did the casting for Carl Millis. From that point on, I returned to Seattle, and at Seattle University, they were just starting an art department. And the students and I decided to build a foundry on campus, and for the next 20 years we did bronze casting. I've always been interested in themes of rank, like the sculpture here on the table. I call it Wounded Emissary. I like the medium of bronze casting because it's something that seemed magical, and that it has this long ancient history and cultures all around the world. It just seemed like I was a part of something that's bigger than me. As I remember at Cranbrook, the things that I learned that impressed me was that boundaries, you should ignore them, and maybe try things that maybe you feel, even though you may not feel prepared, you can prepare yourself for it.
My name is Mary Lee Hu. I graduated from the metalsmithing department in 1965. I got my undergraduate degree at Cranbrook. We were in the basement, and so I just remember working. I guess the sun went across the sky, but we were in the basement. There was the steam tunnel. We could go in and eat from the basement of our basement over to the dining room. And then I lived in a basement dorm room, so I was underground the whole time. When I was doing my MFA thesis work, that I started working with wires in a more fibers process, weaving them or knitting it, knotting it. At school, we're really going quite heavily into the 21st century here with digital technology. We just got a laser welder, and I'm very excited to see if that has any application to my work. We've got this class in mechatronics this quarter, so I've got a visitor in to teach all the students how to design circuits, wire their little circuits, learn about the basic stamp and the different sensing components so that your jewelry, for instance, will react to its environment. So we were talking about if you have a ball chain, which is just that chain you pull the light switch on and off. A lot of people know what I mean. Okay, it would be pretty easy to make a little gear that could incorporate one ball after another, so you could have your little thing climb up or climb down it. And so then you could have a sensing device and a little servo motor to turn on so that, if, say, you had your little guy sitting there on your necklace, and if somebody came up and was really in your personal space and he didn't like it, he could crawl up and hide behind your back until the guy went away, and then he could come back out again. We were just joking around, but there are a lot of things that I think would be pretty cool if you had interactive stuff that you're wearing. You know, all the toys kids play with, interact with them. So why not the sculpture and jewelry that we make? So those are just ideas that we have.
I'm Marcia Carr. I graduated from the fiber department at the Cranbrook Academy of Art in 1976. It was a fun time of my life just to take that time aside and just do what I wanted to in the woods among creative people. It was a statement in optimism. These giant fabric yellow legs filling with wind and moving along and just being out there and then going back and seeing them from the studios. And that just was really a high in my life. I'm so happy I did it. After I left Cranbrook, I did various commissions for public lobbies, corporate settings, and finally I decided that there was so much technique involved and I really wanted to get more immediate with my artwork, put away all of the setting of dyes and dyes running and silk fading. So I opted to go to paint on canvas, just the brush, the canvas, the pigment. For many years I was at UC Berkeley. I started the program in interior design, developed a certificate program there, and then I ultimately developed the fine art certificate program in studio art. And after being there for 19 years, I ran all of the art and design programs. So that was film, video, graphic design, art history, interiors, garden design, landscape architecture. It was a huge department and brought in over $1 million in revenue. And during this time I had a studio. When we moved up to the Pacific Northwest, I took early retirement and changed my identity. I became, instead of being Marcia Carr, program director, educator, I became Marcia Carr artist again. And it's very liberating. I would say you've just had a wonderful experience at Cranbrook, I hope. There's nothing like it. You need to find some practical things so that you can continue your artwork, because it's very hard. It's a very competitive world, and it's nice to free your art so that it's not constrained by worrying about making a living, showing, selling your work. And so most artists have to find another way to carry themselves so their art isn't burdened by finances.
My name is Suzanne Reagan-Lentz, and I graduated from Cranbrook in 1994 from the fiber department. My work has evolved in such a way that it is less complicated than it was when I was there at Cranbrook. There are basic elements that I continue to use, which is in the tradition of self-portraiture. It's myself, props, and photography. At Cranbrook it was dresses. I was trying to turn myself into a paper doll, so I was trying to flatten my image. Then it evolved into these animal blanket sleeper suits. So it was the vinyl bottom footed pajamas, and it was really to take a person who was wearing it back to that place, to that memory for them. Currently, I've been making crowns and photographing myself in them. Crowns made out of felt, made out of newspaper, made out of cherry blossom branches, wire, all kinds of crowns. Cranbrook is always that cycle. It's, like I had it was really good for a year, and then I fell from grace. First semester, second year, and had to claw myself back up, and it ended up fine. I ended up in a very good place. It's such a different time now from when I graduated, and the advice that I would give is to follow your heart and to always follow the path that's in front of you, no matter what. Because you don't know where it's going to take you, but it's bound to take you someplace really great.
My name is Perry Lynch. I graduated from Cranbrook Academy of Art in 2001 from the print media department. Being surrounded by so many artists working in such a wide range of media deeply influenced my work. It led me away from my artwork being focused on a print on a page. So it changed my work in terms of how the work became manifest. I felt like sort of a new freedom to stay rooted in the conceptual basis for the work and choose which kind of media fit the idea best. I feel myself moving towards public art and working in the public realm. I have in the last 2 years really enjoyed the challenge of my work leaving the studio and into this realm where it's I'm dealing with an audience that's not self-selected by their interest in art, but are community members who relate to my work as a dimension of their community. And that is very challenging and extremely rewarding. I've never felt like there was more at stake in art making than I do right now, working in the public realm. Maybe the strongest idea that I've carried forth from my experience at Cranbrook is how important it is to stay true to the conceptual basis of one's work and explore media that fits that concept rather than morphing the concept to fit the media. I would encourage students graduating today to be fearless when approaching new media, and that if there's a way of working that is new and exciting, that one has not explored, to not limit oneself by staying with what is known, but to explore the unknown, and not craft one's identity solely around how they make something, but how they imagine making something.
My name is Patrick McCormick, and I graduated from Cranbrook in the area of ceramics in 1968. I teach at Western Washington University, 30-some years now. I've taught periodically in Scotland, Ireland, England, and Italy. I'm a constructivist. So I really, everything almost that I do is additive in its nature, and so I enjoy putting things together, either prior to firing and then firing them together, or sometimes an assemblage kind of work after, in fact, the pieces are made. I work primarily with stoneware, but I also work a lot with porcelain. Now, all of these things, well, they're current. Actually, things that I started at Cranbrook, I'm still working on. A lot of times there'll be a thrown tubular form or a hand-built form. You know, they were interesting and they were technically difficult. The skulls, you know, the ultimate pot and container for the potter, obviously, is the skull, because it's all in there. And then a variety of cultures have used the skull as a container or a ritual object. You know, it may have even been a little belt loop bag that someone in Papua New Guinea might carry around with ancestral fetish bones, whatever you might find in it. So I thought that was kind of an intriguing thing. Not in a funky way at all. You know, these are fairly anatomical, and you can really look at them and say, this is fairly believable. It's more of a hoax probably than it would be just a funny, almost funk California expression. You know, there's really none of that about it. It seemed to be finding its own direction, and some of them became almost heroic figures. Some of them became funny. You know, one was the missing head of the winged victory of Samothrace. Probably I work a lot more with hidden aspects of in my work now than I ever did. So, you know, you will not really understand a piece until sometimes you maybe look inside and see that somebody's actually painted something in there, or left a message for you, or created another piece within a piece.
My name is Christopher Ozubko, and I graduated from Cranbrook in spring of 1981. I started in 1979. I left the University of Alberta in northern Alberta in Edmonton, Canada, and headed over the border, drove all the way. Took me 4 days to get there. Just to kind of give you a very condensed version, when I graduated from Cranbrook, my desire was to go to New York City and work for a design firm. But at that time, it was somewhat difficult to get the proper papers, the visa papers, in order to work as an alien. So I thought I might try the educational route. I continued on teaching and doing some professional work. I expanded into a studio downtown and hired people. In the mid-90s, I was asked to become the director of the school. So I moved from teaching into administration, and now I'm in my second term of director. I teach one class a year and do my own work and balance everything. The University of Washington School of Art is the largest unit at the university. We have 1,200 majors. We have 3 very separate divisions. There's art, art history, and design. And within those divisions of 40 faculty, they all have different kind of philosophies and directions that they're going. And, you know, working with art historians is very different than working with artists, than working with designers. So, well, I've said this to many of my own students here that are graduating both as seniors as well as graduate students that have no connection for any kind of prospective position, immediate position. And I think as I have, and I've seen many people succeed, you got to really follow your heart and be true to yourself. And as soon as you start to deviate from that, that's when things don't work out. My advice that I would give for someone going through Cranbrook today would be to connect with as many of your colleagues that are there presently, as well as the faculty, because they in turn will be your network for the future. And everything comes back to Cranbrook in some strange, bizarre way. And I think those connections always stay with you. And they will lead to great opportunities for you.
My name is Gene Pizzuto, and I graduated from Cranbrook in 1951 in painting. Yeah, Zoltan Sepeshi, who was also the director at that time. Over the years, my painting caught up with my drawing, and that's still the kind of sequence I have now. I've gravitated towards working from nature and to keep some of the process and the form of abstract expressionist painting and the kind of energy of that. These are current, by the way. These are like a lot of the things in my show. Particularly this multiple image here is what I call vertical image, is something I just concocted recently. As I said before, I taught for almost 40 years. And I've learned it's very hard for them to listen to where you're at without seeing what you do. So I think the best way I can pass anything on is by the kind of accumulation of my work and the kind of way I spend my time. These are some of the tools I draw with here, and a lot of the tools I draw with are natural things. Like, for instance, this is a elderberry reed, and this makes a rather interesting kind of line here. So this is just a natural thing that I broke off, and sometimes I like to just break things off like that and use them without getting too fancy about it, because every stick has its quality, you know. Sometimes got a little more visual truth in it than a lot of other fancy things. It evolved from calligraphy. In other words, rather than to worry about landscape and all the trappings, you kind of use the reed to get some idiosyncratic kind of shapes.
Well, my name is Laura Shope, and I graduated from Cranbrook in 1994 from the sculpture department. The second year was a really different year from the first year. In the second year, I think I was experimenting a lot more and playing a lot more, and I did some performance pieces. Well, stone is my ultimate favorite. I'm a stone carver, and I've tried to get it out of my blood, and I can't. I love it. I just love it, but it's a very slow process, and because I enjoy sort of the thoughts that go through my head and stuff while I'm creating, I enjoy that process, and I enjoy sort of shaping something slowly. And then the plaster that I do is very immediate. Plaster sets up in about 5 minutes, so that's a nice contrast to working with a stone. Those are way more immediate, and I have to work quickly, and I don't know what I'm going to get, and so it's a nice balance between the two processes. And my artwork has evolved in terms of how it looks, but more importantly, I think what's evolved is who I am as an artist, and how I'm creating is a much deeper, more connected process than it was 10 years ago. Advice or observations? Well, if I could tell myself something 10 years ago, I would say be true to your vision, and really I would have followed more of my own instincts about what I wanted to be doing, and really allowed it to flourish while I was there, because the time there was so precious, you know, with nothing else going on, and to really have all that time in the studio. If I could do it over again, I would have done more of my own work, like really truly just followed my instincts and what I really wanted to be doing. And I'm doing more of that now, but the time is tighter, so I wish I had been doing it then.
My name is John Tappert, and I graduated from Cranbrook in design in 1964. I have spent my entire life pursuing that career, and it's manifested itself in everything from furniture to jewelry to making jam. When I first got out of Cranbrook, I made disposable furniture out of cardboard, and I sold literally truckloads of it all over the country. And my initial thought was that it would be for low-income people and for homeless people and people who just needed furniture but couldn't afford it. As it turned out, those people can't afford even $5 furniture. And so it ended up being a boutique item that was sold internationally. Over the years, I've done a whole number of different things that all had to do with design. I've never had a job outside of the things that I've created, the businesses I've created. I've managed to support my family and raise 4 kids, and all on the work of the things that I've made. And you can buy a jar of jam. I'm just raving at this camera here. And we make all these, grow all the fruit ourselves. A lot of people comment that the graphics are so beautiful, and how is it that your graphics are different than everybody else's? And that could be because of my excellent training at Cranbrook. I tend to not give advice, but I do give warnings. And one of the warnings that I would give to students going out into the world is to remain flexible, but remain true to what you believe. There are a lot of people out there that have no real beliefs in anything. And so if you come away from Cranbrook with a set of beliefs, I say hold on to those, because it's what you've got to get you through this life.
My name is Kristen Tollefson, and I graduated from the metals department in 1992. Yeah, I remember the smell of steel from the grinder. I remember a lot of heated discussions and arguments and really good interaction with people. When I left Cranbrook, I went immediately and lived in Iceland for a year, during which time a lot of the work I was doing had to do with collecting and place and chronicling my time abroad. My artwork has evolved over the past 10 plus years since Cranbrook into a more physical manifestation of what I was thinking about during Cranbrook. I've focused on creating work using techniques that are portable, easy to master, easy to teach, and accessible to people who are viewing the work. I find it really important to make work that is easy for people to see and understand, but transcends and goes beyond a real easy definition. I've been working on expanding the scale of my work to public art. I'm also working on curating. I'm also interested in making artist books and not restricting myself to any particular medium or concept. Well, gosh, in terms of advice, I would say breathe and be patient, because I remember, especially on departure from Cranbrook, that the sense of time while you're at Cranbrook is so compacted and intense, and it took me a long time. It took me a year to really kind of unfold from that and get back into regular life time. So I would say breathe.
My name is David Wharton, and I graduated in 1977 in printmaking. When I left Cranbrook, I did black and white images, either relief or lithographs from aluminum plate. It was an interesting concept to try to balance the equalization of black and white on a page with some sort of realistic imagery, and I usually chose allegorical scenarios. As I've traveled around the country, Europe, South America, I collect matchboxes, and I did an entire show of realist paintings of matchbook covers. One time, for helping Dale Chihuly build a print shop for Pilchuck School, Dale asked the glass artist William Morris to collaborate with me on a series of sculptures, and Billy blew them into an entire show I had. Well, the past several years, since the inception of great programs, great computers, and great software, I've been sort of integrating a lot of the ideas that I've always used that are politically or allegorically political, and trying to use them in a fashion that's a little more current, a lot bigger in scale because of the digital printing, and a lot more direct in their political implications. I just recently published a book on a grant from the Abshire Foundation and from Epson Corporation. I was able to obtain the original 4x5 photographed works of Thomas Moran in his Yellowstone expedition, and I produced a book of those 13 prints plus title page and colophon, entitled Western Paradox, where I combined my images with those of Thomas Moran. I'm sure he's rolling in his grave. You know, I'm still, after 27 years, working on paper, period. I've never worked on canvas. And that's where I will continue to work, because that's what I left Cranbrook doing. And the fact that Cranbrook, you know, it sort of left me the rest of my life with a certain peace. I mean, I just think everybody comes out of there with a certain peace of mind.
I know you know him. He started the big sculpture department there back in the 60s. It was his first year. And I'll never forget when we almost blew up the building. Oh boy, we set the side of it on fire. Every department had to give a demonstration, you know, and they brought all these kids down from Wayne State and everything. And we were outside, and I had my little piece that we were pouring, and Schmidt. Yeah, Schmidt, he's the guy. And they had this sitting out there, and they were the bronze, you know. And he was very particular. Everybody had to have safety shoes on and all this, except him. He was just wearing tinny runners. And we're all standing out there outside, and they were going to pour about 30 or 40 of these. And he cracked it, you know, and they poured it out. And he has this thing, and you go like that, and it sealed it. It broke. And this stuff was coming out, you know, and everybody started running, and they set the side of the building on fire, and we were all jumping the wall and everything, and he's standing there making another one, and a piece of it hit his foot and burnt right through it. And he didn't even know it. It seared it, you know. I mean, and he sealed it. And there was molten bronze all over the yard, broke the sidewalks and everything, you know. I mean, this stuff was just like molten lava. And boy, I'll tell you, that was exciting. And smoking, and everybody came running out, and the side of the building, all the ivy had burned off, and windows had cracked, and oh, I remember that.
I've never heard of that.
Oh yeah, we set the buildings on fire.